Rated M for mature.
Oh, we're taking it up a notch. I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. Wes and Mike Cheesy coming all strong.
Hello, and welcome back to the conference call. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Chris Edwards, and I'm here with my other co-host over there, TJ. TJ, what's up?
Sup?
How you doing today?
I'm good. It is a random, what is today? Tuesday?
Today's Tuesday when we're recording this show.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good. Just got off work.
Okay.
So,
You seem a little bit more rested because did you have to travel today for work?
I didn't have to, nope, I did not have to drive today. I work from home today, and those are the best days in the world.
Okay, I
Yeah.
hear you. I hear you. All right, so welcome back to all those that watch us on our YouTube channel. And of course, a big welcome back to those that are joining us on the Indie Soup Network. We hope that you've been enjoying this season and all the shows that we've been doing. We love coming into your home or onto your mobile device, however you watch us. So today's topic that we're going to tackle is code switching, and it's not what you think. So typically, people always think of code switching as what people do to kind of fit in linguistically and with respects to like maybe black or white people in like work environments or in social environments. So let me just kind of read a quick definition. Code switching is a social linguistic concept that once simply described the practice of other was it alternating between multiple language varieties of language in conversation, basically. But what we're going to talk about today is code switching when it comes to the queer community, the LGBTQIA plus community, and why is it that we are still doing it, and especially in the workplace. So, I guess let's start with a question, and I'll answer it, but I want you to take a first stab at it. Um, do you code switch in the workplace, or have you ever code switched in the workplace?
I need, I need, I don't, I don't know. So I know like the other week when we were first kind of discussing this topic, um, you and Rex kind of gave me a different point of view of it to where I was like, well, I guess I do. But initially I was like, no, I don't. Um,
Okay.
so the way that y'all kind of posed it to me is like stylistically or style wise. Like I don't wear a lot of things that I would wear outside of work to work. Um,
Right.
and because I can be very, I don't know if provocative is the right word.
Okay, that's a good word, provocative.
I can be very provocative sometimes in my dress, when I'm not at work or when it's like a special event, but I would never wear like something like, for instance, what I wore to the Renaissance concert, or I would
I would hope not, child.
but that's what I'm saying, it just wouldn't be appropriate, so I don't know if I see that as
Right.
coding, I'm just seeing it as
Well, think I don't. All right. So that in that particular instance, I don't think it's code switching. So let's kind of back up a little bit. So
mhm,
let's look at it holistically. Code switching is, in a way, something that we in the queer community do to make others feel comfortable around us a lot of
mhm,
time. So we're talking about the
mm,
workplace.
this
You would
concept,
never go
right,
into the work environment like, "Hey, girl," and like, and be loud and act a certain way. One, you want to be professional in the work environment, especially as
mhm,
professionals. But then there are other things that we do and how we speak and certain slangs that can definitely identify us as people in the queer community, right?
right,
So what we do, and a lot of times, sometimes you don't even realize that you're doing it, but like when you get into a work environment, like you make sure that you'll shake hands and you'll make sure it's that firm handshake. You're not going to give like like a dainty handshake that you might give to someone you might see that you're interested
mhm,
in. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Um, Also, it's in the tone of your voice. Like sometimes we will deepen our voices just so people can't pick us out of a crowd in a way.
mhm, mhm,
Um, Sometimes we'll make sure we walk up straight and we don't twitch a certain way. So, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that with some small, nuances or some small things that are really notwithstanding, I don't think I do. I truly feel like the type of person that I am at work is the same type of person that you're going to get outside of work. Now, like I said, there will be some things that change, like the type of conversation I'll have with you at work is going to be different, or outside of work. It's definitely going to be different than the conversation or some conversations I have with you at work. But that depends on who I'm having the conversation with. Like, I'm not the type of, for example, one of my coworkers, well, now former coworkers, um, we would talk about some things at work, but I always knew that there was more that we needed to talk about, like that was on a more personal level. And so I would always be like, I'm not going to talk to her about this at work because that's not a safe for work conversation. But is that code switching? I don't think so. Um,
That's not code switching, but I guess where it really comes into play is like you won't just talk to everyone and be your I don't want to say authentic self. So it's a very tricky conversation and topic because it straddles a lot of lines, and then
mhm.
also how you show up in work is different than how you show up in your regular everyday personal life.
Well, okay, I will say that I do not show up to work as Bizarre Hodgepodge. I
Okay.
show up to work as TJ. So I guess in that vein, it is code switching because Bizarre Hodgepodge is different from TJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, but to me, it just makes sense. It's just appropriate. So I guess I do. I mean, I guess I do. Um, and also like with me it takes time for me to get to know someone. It takes time for me to also open up to people. Typically when I'm in a new environment, I'm quiet and reserved, very demure, very mindful.
And you know how
um
you do this.
I'm very quiet, but it's typically because I'm figuring out who's who. I'm figuring out other people's personalities. I think that's just the introvert and the perhaps the empath in me, that when I naturally get into an unfamiliar environment, I kind of recede back, hug a wall, and just figure out what's going on. What's the lay of the land?
Yeah, but see, I'm not. So here's the thing: like, you've been at your job now for what, almost a year?
8 months, 9 months.
Okay, all right. So you know these people, but you're not going to show up how you show up with like with Rex and I, and have just conversations, and then also certain types of dress. So, for instance, when you go to work, I've seen images that you've posted online on your social platform of you like in the elevator at work, and you'll have on like a blazer and a shirt, some jeans, and
Mhm.
just some regular shoes. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Mhm.
Very stylish. But I know there's another side to TJ. And
Mhm.
you're not gonna show up to, I mean, one, it's not appropriate, but you're not gonna show up in like a blouse or like a crop top, or you're not I don't know, have you showed up in like platforms or heels?
Not yet, and I would not. However, I did just buy a pair of sneakers that have a little bit of a heel on them, but it's kind of hard to tell. I didn't buy them specifically for work, but I definitely
Right.
would wear them for work. But no, I wouldn't. So yes, in that vein, yeah. But also, do I want to be wearing them all day? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's really hard for me to tell. But no, you're right. Like I do when it comes to dressing for work. Um, my style is different. But I will say that I think that in any way that I show up style wise, I dress to not just to stand out, but I dress to stand out, if that makes sense. Because I
Yeah.
I I can't stand looking just like everybody else, and I
Yes.
can't stand everybody else looking like everybody else, if that makes
I get
sense.
it. I get it.
So
You're not gonna dress like Karen and Ken. You're gonna dress like Bazaar, Hodgepodge,
yeah, exactly.
or TJ. And
Oh,
I mean, I think TJ's more of a refrained type of dress. Whereas
yes. Yeah,
Bazaar
yeah,
is more like, all right, hey, here it is. This is
yeah. No
me.
holds barred. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Um, do you tongue pop at work?
I have.
But
I
very loud.
so I specifically did it one time with the same coworker I was talking about just a second ago. Um and I did it really, it was almost unconscious. I did it and she was like, "That was loud." And I was like, "I know." But I don't, to honestly, at this point, tongue popping is kind of an unconscious thing, but I am also, I'm not gonna do it like in a room full of people, but I
Right,
do
but
do it.
you're conscious not to do it at work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So in a way, that's a little bit of code
This
switching.
is true. This is
So
true.
yeah, and I mean, I didn't realize that I was code switching for many years, well, all my life basically, in every
Mhm.
aspect, but especially at work. Because for me, it was like, well, one, I didn't let people know who I was, and then two, I didn't want people to figure out. So I always had to make sure that I had like that facade, and like when I walk in that door, it's just like business, business, business.
Mhm.
Never allow anyone to see the other side of me. And I had friends at work.
Mhm.
There's a distinction. There are coworkers, then there are people you're acquaintance with somewhat, and then
Mhm.
there might be like one or two people that you consider a friend at work. And even them, I didn't quote unquote really let them in and let them see the full me. So I definitely was code switching. So I made sure that I always stood up straight and tall, make sure I get that firm handshake. And all my interactions, I was always very conscious of my interactions with people.
Okay.
Um, Whereas, I mean, it's a little bit different now because I work from home, but
Right.
even when I show up in spaces with other people, um, I'm myself.
Mhm.
And whatever myself is how I show up. And the other thing too is I'm very open about my relationship, who I'm with. Everyone that I work with knows that I'm married. I don't hide that. Plus I'm on social media, so it's not something that I can hide. And if I was to ever go back into a work environment where I'm surrounded by other people, I know that I can just be myself now, and I don't have to code switch and turn that on.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? So I mean, there's a delicate balance. And I think a lot of us like I said, kind of going back to the beginning of the conversation, a lot of us do it not necessarily for us, but we do it to make everyone else around us, quote unquote, feel comfortable.
Mhm.
Um, 'Cause, not everyone is accepting, not everyone is put themselves in a situation where they can be around different types of people. People are very
Mhm.
stuck. Some people can be very stuck in their ways, and that can cause a problem. So, in order to allow them to feel comfortable and not out of place, this is something that we have inherited and that we do um, to appease them.
Yeah.
Um, I actually had a conversation that aired on Safe Space last week with my guest DeAndre Gordon. He's finishing up law school, and he was talking about code switching and how you have to show up a certain type of way for work because of one, the fact that you're representing your client, and you have to have a certain face towards the client, and then also when you're walking into like a courtroom. And I do get that. um, but then, how are you able to, what's that fine balance? You want to be yourself and show up authentically in the world because, we're always telling people, be authentic, show up authentically. How do you do that in your personal life and in your professional life without being a detriment to one or the other? Because I feel as though it's a constant battle of balance that we're having to fight.
Well, I think I think a great way to do that is in the way that you dress. I think a great way to do that is a great way to show who you are without necessarily having to verbalize it is in the way that you dress. So when I started this job in January, I knew that what I had gone through with my last job and the year and a half that I wasn't working, that was a transformative period for me. And I knew that going back into a corporate environment, I could not regress. I couldn't be a well, I never was a suit and tie type of person, but I couldn't be like chinos, although I just bought some chinos, chinos, and quaint little button down. I couldn't. That just was not me. And
Right.
so I think a great way, or at least for me, but I think for a lot of people, I think a great way to show up or show who you are authentically is to do it in your dress. So there's a lot of times where I will show up to work again, not Renaissance, not heels, not whatever, but I will make certain style choices to where I feel very comfortable because I am displaying who I am. So I
Right.
think that's a really great way to actually, do that without actually verbalizing it.
Now, let me play devil's advocate because this is something we also talked about in last week's episode of Safe Space. Sometimes when people show up authentically in how they represent themselves as far as their attire and how they dress,
Hmm.
they've been fired because
Hmm.
it draws attention to them. And certain office environments don't want individualization of people, and it makes them feel uncomfortable. And even though you're not supposed to discriminate with gender, sex, and race,
Hmm.
people still do it.
Yeah.
You have a lot of people in the queer community that are fired from jobs simply because of how they dressed. I remember last season, I had another guest, um, and she was they identify as she her. She's a transgender woman,
Hmm.
and she was fired from one of her jobs because of how she showed up. You know, um, that they knew that she was transgender, but as long as she just kept quiet about it, they were okay with it. The
Hmm.
moment she started to speak up and just be herself in that environment, it was too much for them, and they let her go.
Hmm.
Um, and it also depends on the type of work environment and market you're in. So, for instance, I think that for instance, if you work in fashion, it can be a little bit more accepting, just because you have
Of
a large
course.
queer community in
Yeah.
fashion. Um, but that's on the creative side. Now, on the
Right.
more corporate side, that's a problem because that's actually where she was. She was more on the corporate side of fashion,
Hmm.
and it became an issue for them. Go ahead.
So here's how I feel about that. Um, if you are someone who is you're showing up to work as your true authentic self, and that workplace or that company, that that employer doesn't like it, or they fire you, or they let you go, or they give you a hard time or whatever, then that place was not qualified to employ you. It's not
Yeah,
that you didn't belong there, they weren't qualified to hold you.
absolutely.
Um, and so that's the way I think of it. And it rare it never I never think about it in in the way that I dress, but I do think about it often when it comes to like tattoos. Or my tattoos rather. Now, I feel that the days of tattoos being taboo in the workplace is gone. At least I hope so.
It
Um,
is.
but the way I see it is like if you, whether you're a current employer or a prospective prospective employer, if you have a problem with that, you aren't qualified to employ me. because I'm showing up as who I am, and if you don't like it, you're not qualified. Simple as
Yeah.
that.
And to add on to that, and I'm a true believer in if I'm not showing up to work for you to criticize me on my dress
Mhm.
unless I'm coming in looking raggedy taggedy and I just don't look put together, then you have every right to comment. But you've hired me to do a job because one, I'm qualified to do the job. I have expertise in whatever it is that you've hired me for, and I can do that job. You know, just
And
because. Go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. Yes, you've hired me for all of those things, but you've also hired me. That
Yes.
is the thing that I've said that to myself a number of times since actually starting this new job. Is yes, you've hired me for my expertise, my background, my skill set, whatever, 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 but you've also hired me. And so you're gonna get the full package. I'm not going I simply cannot show up and fit in. And if I don't fit into the culture, then again, I don't belong here and you're not qualified. I will say though that like it can be very difficult to show up authentically as yourself, especially if you are someone who doesn't, fit the mold, fit the culture, follow the rules per se, etc. But you have to remember that more often than not, you're giving someone else permission to show up as themselves.
Yeah.
Um, 'Cause I'm a big people. I'm observer of people, and I see just people just how repressed they seem to be, and how just confined and constricted. Just watching people just kind of like walk by, especially like at work or whatever. And I'm just like, if you could just let your hair down, I feel like you would be happier. Or if you realize that you didn't really have to dress like this, so you could kind of show up in something more comfortable, I bet you would be happier. But I don't even think you realize the box that you're putting yourself in. So a
Yeah.
lot of times, yes, it's difficult to show up as you are and not to code switch or whatever, but you are giving someone else permission to do the same.
Yeah. So I know we've talked about workplace and code switching, and I know we're getting short on time, but do you find I know you personally do not code switch when you're out socially and in public. But have you ever been in an environment where you know it's not familiar to you, and just so you can get comfortable with the situation that you've code switched?
Not that I can recall.
Okay.
Not that I can recall.
I
But
know
I feel like
I
I
know
also don't put myself in situations where I'm not going to be comfortable. And if I find myself in a situation where I'm not comfortable, I'm probably going to leave pretty quickly.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Um Now, today, absolutely not. I don't ever not show up as myself, and like
Hmm.
I'm a package now. I don't show up alone a lot of times to spaces. Whenever I can get invited out somewhere, you know, my better half is right there, right beside me, and we show up
Hmm.
together. And this is who it is. We scan the room. We look for try to get a vibe for the environment, but we don't make ourselves small so that other people can feel big.
Right.
Um, in the very beginning when we were dating, we didn't even do that,
Hmm.
but we are conscious of when we're out in public, just to know that our surroundings, especially when we go somewhere new that we are not familiar with, um, we just try to get a feel for the room because and this goes for anyone. It doesn't matter who you are, or what community you belong to. You always need to be cognizant of your environment. It's just like us as Black people. We're not going to go into what they call those sundown towns and just feel comfortable and be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're Black and we're here. No, because we
Hmm.
know we have to be conscious of those surroundings. So um, we're conscious, but we don't intentionally go in with the intent that we're going to make ourselves small so that you can feel okay.
Right.
If that
Right.
makes sense. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. It's been 40 something years. This genie's not going back in the bottle.
Child, I don't know how you did it for so long.
All right. Yeah. Well, listen, some of us, had a harder time.
It takes a little bit longer for some of us, and that's all
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
okay.
But now that it's out the box, I'm out the bottom. Hey.
Now the cat's out the bag.
Yeah, pretty much,
Yeah.
pretty much. All
Mm.
right, so no, I think this was actually a really good conversation. And this is something that we can even continue to talk about even more. Let us know in the comments if you belong to the community or even if you don't. Do you code switch? Do you go into certain environments and basically change up who you are or how you talk and how you dress so that everyone else feels comfortable around you? We would love to hear your thoughts on this topic. But this has been another good episode, another great topic, and I can't believe this is what episodes. This is week 7, I believe. No, week
I,
6. Week 6, episode
I don't lost
6.
track.
Crazy. We got 2 more episodes before the season's over with the conference call. So let me. You know what? Let's get this outro music playing first.
All right. I hear it this time.
All right. Okay. So listen, thank you guys for joining us for this great episode again. Be sure to subscribe, to like this video, and hit the notification button so you can get notified when we drop new videos. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Deuces. Thanks for watching this show on Indie Soup Media. Now, if you're watching here on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and hit the notification button so that you can get notified when we drop new videos every week. See you guys next time.